Since its invention, the torpedo has been a fundamental and indispensable weapon for submarines. It is launched while the submarine remains underwater. This leads to a question I have long wondered about. Why doesn't seawater flood into the submarine after firing a torpedo? A submarine's torpedo tube has two hatches, one at the front and one at the rear. These hatches operate under a mechanism where both can be closed at the same time, but they cannot be opened simultaneously. When the front hatch of the torpedo tube is open, the rear hatch remains closed. After the torpedo is fired, seawater does enter the torpedo tube. But since the rear hatch remains sealed, the water cannot flood into the interior of the submarine. Once the launch is complete, the front hatch is closed and a special valve drains the seawater that entered the tube into an internal storage tank. This compensates for the weight lost from launching the torpedo, helping maintain the submarine's balance. Once the tube is drained, it can be reloaded with another torpedo, a truly ingenious design. This means that all submarine operations are conducted beneath the ocean's surface. But have you ever wondered why submarines move faster underwater than on the surface? If not, now is the perfect time to understand this phenomenon. The key lies in their teardrop shape. This design allows submarines to glide smoothly through the ocean when fully submerged. When they rise to the surface, a significant amount of energy is lost due to wave resistance created on the water's surface. This energy loss reduces engine efficiency, which explains why submarines move slower on the surface compared to conventional ships with bulbous or reverse bows. However, older submarines, such as those used during World War II and the world's first nuclear-powered submarine, USS Nautilus, SSN 571, had bows designed with angles to minimize wave resistance, allowing them to move faster on the surface than underwater. Of course, for these engineering marvels to operate smoothly, human expertise is essential. Submarine crew members are among the most highly trained and skilled personnel in the Navy. However, I've noticed that very few women serve aboard submarines. Why is that? According to military sources, as of now, no female personnel have been assigned to serve on U.S. Navy submarines due to the harsh living conditions and extremely limited privacy. Women have only been involved with U.S. submarines as civilian technicians, conducting short-term inspections of special equipment. Some female Navy personnel have attended 2-day orientation courses, but their full integration into submarine crews remains rare. Regardless of gender, the requirements for submarine sailors are extremely strict. After all, they operate deep-diving oceanic assassins equipped with terrifying weaponry. Among the most iconic of these deep-diving submarines is the Soviet nuclear-powered K-278 Komsomolets, which holds the world record for the deepest dive at 1,020 meters. Unfortunately, this vessel now rests at the bottom of the ocean after an air duct rupture led to its tragic sinking. Since then, no other submarine has broken this record, despite advancements in technology. Are modern submarines simply not designed to dive as deep as before? To evade anti-submarine tracking devices, submarines must reach a certain depth. Therefore, deep diving capability remains an important factor in submarine development. However, achieving such depths comes at a high cost. Submarine hulls must be made from expensive alloy materials to withstand immense pressure. Additionally, submarines require a double hull design, which further increases costs. Perhaps due to these financial constraints, only one vessel of the Komsomolets type was ever built. The U.S. also attempted to develop the Seawolf-class submarine, capable of diving beyond 600 meters. This vessel was not only designed for deep dives but was also equipped with advanced technology, making it one of the most formidable attack submarines in the world. However, after constructing just 3 Seawolf-class submarines, the U.S. military halted production. They realized that extreme diving depth did not provide enough tactical advantage to justify the enormous cost. Each Seawolf submarine cost a staggering $3 billion. Even the wealthiest military in the world found this expense excessive. Russia also developed numerous submarines, but only 2 of them can dive nearly 600 meters deep. Meanwhile, Russia's Bore-class strategic nuclear submarines have a maximum diving depth of around 450 meters, and the U.S. Ohio-class submarines only reach about 240 meters. Clearly, Nations have moved away from prioritizing extreme diving depth. While deeper dives do have certain advantages, it is unnecessary to exaggerate the importance of deep diving technology. The deeper a submarine goes, the higher the cost, and increased expenses do not always translate to greater effectiveness. In reality, modern stealth technology is already sufficient to allow submarines to remain undetected. Additionally, nuclear submarines need to launch missiles, and diving too deep can hinder this capability. As a result, diving depth is no longer the most critical factor in submarine design. Beyond diving depth, another major question for submarine enthusiasts is, how long can a submarine stay submerged? Submarines are designed and staffed to carry out missions lasting several months. However, both diesel and nuclear submarines must surface periodically, though for different reasons. For diesel submarines, their diesel engines generate power through internal combustion, which requires oxygen. Therefore, they must surface to take in enough oxygen to keep the engines running. Diesel submarines typically surface every few days, not only to collect fresh oxygen but also to expel gases generated during engine operation. This process is facilitated by a device called a snorkel, which allows the submarine to operate underwater while drawing in oxygen from the surface. Each time a diesel submarine surfaces, its engines recharge the onboard batteries, which supply power while the vessel is submerged. On the other hand, nuclear submarines rely on nuclear reactors. These reactors generate enough energy to power all onboard electrical systems, including life support systems for the crew. Unlike diesel submarines, nuclear submarines can operate continuously for weeks without surfacing. Their nuclear reactors can generate power for decades, making them nearly self-sufficient. Despite this, both diesel and nuclear submarines must occasionally surface to communicate with their home base, receive new orders, or transmit important information. Underwater communication signals are less effective. However, you might be surprised to learn that food and supplies, not energy, are the primary limiting factors for how long a nuclear submarine can remain submerged. Typically, they only carry enough food for 90 days. Since their emergence in the late 19th century, submarines have quickly become an essential naval weapon. For a long time, there was no effective way to counter these oceanic predators. Submarines could move freely and destroy enemy vessels without fear of detection. Even when they surfaced, spotting them with the naked eye from a distance was challenging, especially under bright sunlight. The secret lies in their mysterious hull paint. Its primary purpose is camouflage, and black is the optimal color for concealing submarines in the deep ocean. However, when standing on the deck of a surface warship or any conventional vessel, it is much easier to spot objects on the water. Modern binoculars and telescopes allow navigators to detect objects up to 70 kilometers away, or even farther. Furthermore, every modern warship and destroyer is equipped with radar and sonar systems capable of detecting submarines from great distances. This makes hull paint color a crucial factor in a submarine's survival. Black or gray are the most effective colors, helping submarines blend into their surroundings. This is also why submarines typically surface at night, when they are much harder to detect. However, not all submarines are painted black or gray, despite these being the most common colors. Some nations choose different colors to camouflage their submarines for specific operational environments. For example, North Korean submarines are painted green. This is because the color of a submarine depends on the waters where it operates. Countries like Iran and Israel also paint their submarines green, as they primarily operate in clear, shallow coastal waters where green provides better camouflage. Additionally, not all submarines are used for military purposes. Some are utilized for deep-sea exploration or search and rescue missions. In these cases, camouflage is not a top priority, allowing for a variety of colors. However, in the military domain, black remains the preferred color due to the nature of submarine operations and the need for stealth to evade enemy detection. That said, using a dark-colored hull is only a small part of a submarine's stealth capabilities. Since nearly 99% of a submarine's operations take place underwater, avoiding detection and preventing collisions are far greater challenges. When a submarine submerges to a depth where it can still use its periscope, it determines its position using GPS. Once fully submerged, it relies on its own navigation system, which detects course changes and measures speed to calculate the submarine's exact location. At the same time, the navigator estimates the submarine's position based on its route, speed, water depth, and ocean currents. This data is then compared with the onboard navigation system to ensure accuracy. Submarines also use sonar for navigation. Additionally, sonar is used to avoid collisions with friendly submarines and to detect and track enemy vessels. When people think of sonar, they often imagine active sonar, the kind commonly seen in movies where a ping is sent into the water, and the returning sound waves reveal what's below. However, submarines never use active sonar. Instead, they rely on passive sonar, which constantly listens. If a sound is detected within a specific frequency range associated with submarine activity, the signal is tracked to locate and eliminate the target. In shallow waters, things become more complicated. In such conditions, submarines can use the periscope to scan the surroundings, but their mobility is significantly limited. If an anti-submarine vessel appears ahead and the submarine doesn't dive deep and fast enough, it could face serious trouble. Spotting the enemy vessel as early as possible is crucial. Operating in shallow waters also increases the risk of being detected. Raising the periscope above the water's surface essentially makes it easier for the enemy to locate the submarine. This concludes our exploration of seemingly simple yet little-known facts about these deep-sea predators. Are you curious about other weapons? Leave your questions for Cypher Fiction Lab in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share if you found this video informative. Cypher Fiction Lab wishes you a great day ahead.